So, welcome to the Democracy Week here in Kristiansand and to a conversation that brings us face to face with real-time threats to democracy and freedom of expression. We're joined today by two important voices in this field. This is Remus Cernea. He's a humanist, a journalist, and a war reporter. And here is Jørgen Frydnes, who's Secretary General of the Norwegian PEN and also Chair of the Nobel Committee, and also a former director of the Utøya Center, a place that preserves the memory of July 22nd and serves as a platform for learning of political engagement and youth activities. So I wanted to start with an opening question to you both. You've both spent years defending democracy and free expression, but these are, as we know, turbulent times. So I want to ask both of you, how bad is it really right now? And Remus, you gave us a chill earlier this week at the Europe conference when you said, this may be the last days of freedom for my country. That's how bad it is?
It is because when you talk about democracy, we have to talk about what's going on in the minds of the people, of the citizens. Because if we look at history, we have to understand that democracy is not natural. I would say that tyranny is much more natural than democracy. Because from the ancient times and even much time before the ancient times, the human communities were controlled and led by tyrants. The one who was the strongest took the power and kept the power as long as he demonstrated himself to be a strong leader. Of course, with some lieutenants around him, but the most powerful guy in the town was the tyrant. And all of the others had to obey him. If somebody wanted to criticize or to do something else, define the leader, define the tyrant, he or she could be killed or harmed in some ways. So for a long time, for hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived in tyranny. Democracy is something new. It was discovered or invented by the Greeks, ancient Greeks, around 2,500 years ago. And it lasted there for 1.5 centuries, let's say, at most. And then we had the Roman Republic, which lasted for 3 centuries around. But then we had the modern democracies. But most of the time in history we had tyrannies. And this is very important to understand the human nature, because it's like a kind of a gravity of human nature that keep us to desire tyrants and to serve them and to obey them.
And so, when you see what's going on in Romania right now,
yes,
you think
in order to change the things, you have to have citizens. Citizenship is the base value of democracy. And in order to have citizenship and the conscience to be aware as a citizen of a country, you have to share some values and you have to develop your critical thinking. And this is maybe the main battle for our democracies. The main battle is for human minds. And because on one hand you have disinformation, conspiracy theories, manipulation and so on, demagoguery, populism. And on the other hand, you can have people who develop their skills to think critically, and to understand what's going on based on facts and reason and logic. And so what's going on in Romania, and my last sentence, what is going on in Romania is that Russia succeeded to manipulate a big part of our society in Romania. And in these days we have this battle, maybe the last one for years and maybe decades, but a very important battle for saving our citizenship and our pro-democratic mind. We will see if the majority of the Romanians are pro-democratic or a majority will vote for having a new dictatorship.
Yeah, and the next round of this election is May 18th.
May 18th.
And candidate, which by many is described as a pro-Russian candidate. He got 40% of the votes in the first round.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's where the tension lies. Jürgen, do you agree that we as humans are more wired for tyranny? And how is it for you, who works pro-democracy in a relatively safe place like Norway? Do you, when you look around and take the bigger picture, do you feel that things are darkening?
Well, looking at the description and history of the Remus is obviously that, well, we are maybe then in a lighter place than ever before. So that's a completely different way of seeing it. After hundreds and hundreds of years of tyranny, we actually still are in a bubble in history where democracy thrives a lot of places in the world. However, if you look at how that bubble is seeming to burst quite a lot of places, there is absolutely nothing to discuss. There is democratic backsliding going on. It's been going on for years. Even though I was born in 1984. I grew up in the 90s. Everything seemed possible. Democracy was to win. Even though we had genocide in Rwanda and ethnic cleansing and wars in the Balkans, genocide, Srebrenica, it kind of somehow our optimism lasted. And that part of history is gone. But to look at it as an end way where we cannot do something is the wrong conclusion, I think. We are obliged on behalf of humanity to stay optimistic. PEN works in 100 countries around the world, and very many of those people we work with, writers, authors, journalists, they are also feeling a sense of apathy, feeling that we cannot do anything. It's going in the darkest direction, but that's a really dangerous mindset, I think, as well. If we want to change things, we have to believe, and we have to keep that faith in that what we do will actually matter. So it's not just black or white. Dark skies is definitely on the horizon, but we can work against it.
Just a short add. It's an ongoing battle. You said that you were born in 1984. There is a famous book with this name of. Let me tell you. Let me say that I lived in 1984 in that book until 1989 when we had a revolution and a communist regime fall down. But yes, we have to fight optimistically. Yeah, we have to fight, and yes, we have to be aware that the crisis of democracies are almost at every step in the history of democracies, and we have to. That's why I ask people who wants to live in democracy, who wants to fight for democracy, but who is willing to die for democracy if necessary. We have to be aware that all of these three steps necessary in this huge fight.
And to be able to come out of the apathy and do something, we have to know what we're going to do something about and how. And this is what we're going to get into in this conversation. But Remus first. I think the example of the Romanian candidate now, Remus Cernea, is a good example. How did he manage to get 40% of the votes in the first round? On what platforms did he operate, or his people operate, and how did they do it?
Yes, let me tell you that for maybe 10 years or so, he was, before joining politics, he was an activist for different causes. And maybe his main cause was the reunification with Moldova, with the Republic of Moldova. The Republic of Moldova was taken by Russia in 1812 first. Then it was taken back by Russia also in 1940. And in this country, most of the citizens are Romanians. So he drove a movement in order to say, look, that part of land is Romanian, let's try to make a reunification. And of course, it might be a good cause, because Moldova in itself is very vulnerable. It's very vulnerable, especially because of Russia. and there are still Russian troops on some parts of the Moldova, of this state of the country. And then he joined politics in 2020. He didn't succeed too much. At the first elections that he stand for, he took around 1% or something like this. But then COVID happened. And when COVID happened, he used a lot of conspiracy theories and all of these narratives against masks, against the vaccines, and he succeeded to get some traction, some support from the people who share this kind of conspiracy theories. And then he succeeded at the end of 2020 to get 9% of the seats in the parliament. And after that, he used a lot of other conspiracy theories, and then the war started in Ukraine, and he used the conspiracy theories and the narratives of Russia against Ukraine. And step by step, he succeeded to build a movement. And then let me add that Romania is under the hybrid war of Russia. And it's undoubtedly, there are a lot of information that we have, a lot of proofs that there are on public media from the secret services, not only Romanian secret services. Recently, even the French secret services provided some proofs that Russia is involved. And what they are doing, they are speculate this dissatisfaction of the people with the government or with other topics, but they are not saying just this, oh, this government is bad. No, they are saying this government is bad, but because it is manipulated by EU. So EU, European Union is bad. So let's think to get out. Let's think to be more, they say about them that they are sovereignists. They want to be more independent. But Romania is a sovereign country by constitution. It's no doubt about this. And it's not a matter of sovereignty. It's a matter of demagoguery and all of these people who are unsatisfied with the government. Somehow they succeeded to trick them and to make them believe that Europe and democratic values are the main threat, and maybe the Russia is the way, Ukraine is bad, and maybe we need a change, because many people in Romania need a change, a political change. But of course we need a political change to improve democracy, not to destroy democracy. So they are using some thoughts that are quite understandable if you are unsatisfied with the government, but they are making those people to want to destroy democracy, not to improve democracy. This is the main difference.
Yeah, and so we have a situation where Russian forces or Russian influence does matter in the election, and also he's on TikTok, isn't he? So he's capturing the young people with, for instance, saying that we need a president who has a sense of respect, so he doesn't promote a message which is too difficult to disagree with. So that's smart. Jørgen, what do you think when you hear Remus speak here? I mean, we are in Norway and we can think that Romania is very far away, and something like this, influence of the elections and propaganda in channels which we don't quite follow or have any overview of, that's a different reality, but is it?
I mean, it's a different setting and different background, of course. We don't have the same history as you just described with Moldova, but the mechanisms we see already. Those who are following this happening in Norway see that already interference in local elections is going on in Norway. The same mechanisms, and that is both a very scary thing, but also an opportunity for us wanting to do something about it, because a lot of strongmen around the world, authoritarian leaders, use the same book. They use the same techniques all over the place.
1984 book.
Yeah, that's probably the basis of it, and they use the same techniques, and that is they do it with the use of tech. They use different target groups. They're able to do it, and I would say much better than we are able to counter it. That is one of the biggest issues that we face, is that basically they are better than us at the moment in doing a lot of these disinformation campaigns, propaganda, etc., etc. And we have to be better. But I think taking it back to a Norwegian setting, many of the same things could be happening here on a much bigger scale. The difference is, of course, and I hope we can talk about that also, is that how is the democratic culture of our country? Are we really up for the task when we are demanded? And you mentioned a bit about it already, that democracy is not something which is decided in a parliament. Now we have democracy. Democracy is the will of the people, it's the mindset of the people, it's democratic citizens. And that needs to be trained, taught, and repeated again and again by generations. And if we don't do that, if we don't take it back to our daily life, we will also have a problem. But I believe, of course, Norway, we very often rank top of all these indexes. So we are in a different space, but we cannot, rest. We have to be willing, as you say, to discuss these and to fight for what we believe in, which is democracy.
Yes,
I just wanted to say that there's been 2 reports this week from the Norwegian Society, which gives food for thought. I think we are on the top of the list when it comes to press freedom. That's really brilliant. Also, PST, who investigates possible threats against us, say that there will be interference in the upcoming election this autumn. No doubt there will be. So it's here, it's just with a bit different background, of course, and in a different setting than in Romania. But you said that we have to get the democracy spirit in the society to become stronger and people to get more involved. And I know you're both concerned about what young people learn and how young people engage in this. What's the story there in Romania, Remus? The school hasn't been too good in teaching democracy?
This very grave situation in Romania is also because of the failure of our educational system. And before joining politics, I was the president of the Romanian Humanist Association. I was involved in many projects with other NGOs also. And one of the projects was to look at the religious textbooks in the schools. And most of the religious textbooks that we saw promoted hate against minorities, discriminating approaches, and unethical based on threatening children. There were even some photos with children punished by God, and those children went to hospital because they were not so good children, and so God punished them and sent them to hospital with arms or legs broken. And unfortunately, this religious indoctrination in schools succeeded to make a lot of young people having a mystical way of thinking. And this type of thinking is very vulnerable when we're talking about politics, because the step between mysticism to populism it's very short. So the populists are using this religious tool and religious propaganda, and there are a lot of priests that were involved in many electoral campaigns, even now. There are some involved, and unfortunately religion was a tool very often used for promoting such kind of populists. And instead of helping young people to become Democrats, the educational system unfortunately made many of them want a dictatorship. And there are some polls, and they were asked, what do you want? Do you want a strong dictator? And they say yes, in huge numbers, 40% or more than 40%. So this is the electorate prepared in the last 35 years after the fall of the communism. This is the electorate. Religious indoctrination, a lot of populism. Of course, there are many other causes, economical, social, but ideological. I think that different kind of ideologies are the most effective causes for these people to want a dictatorship. And it's a paradox Imagine that there are a lot of young people who have 20 years old, 25 years old, 30 years old, and they think that in communism was much better than today. So there is religion, there is a nostalgia, a pseudo-nostalgia in young people for the communist regime. They didn't live in those times, but they believe, because they were tricked, they were manipulated to think that it was better. No, it was horrible. You have no freedoms. You had to spend hours every day to stay in line to buy some food, because it was no food. You had to, so it was awful. It was dark in the cities. We had no power in electricity. We had no electricity for many hours every day. I did my homework at the light of the candles for many years before 1989, because it was no electricity. So it was awful. But young people think that it was better. And these candidates praise Ceausescu. They say, yeah, Ceausescu was a patriot, was a good leader. He did a lot of things. And they praised also a far-right movement in the 30s and 40s that did a lot of crimes in Romania. It was called the Iron Ward, and they killed 4 prime ministers in those times, and many other Romanian personalities, cultural personalities, and they killed Jews, or they did horrible crimes against Jews in Bucharest and in other parts of the country. So they say now that yeah, they were proud Romanians, they were the essence of our nation, but it was a mystical fascism. So they praise dictatorships, they praise mystical fascism, they praise Putin, because Putin is also a patriot, yeah, and they praise a kind of belief that we as a nation, we are much better than anyone else in the world.
Yeah, that's not quite the fundament you want when you to build a liberal democracy, of course. Jürgen, it's very different in Norway and the Nordic countries. Of course, we don't have that kind of history. And Remus said to me last night that coming to Norway is like coming to paradise, but we don't understand that we live in paradise. Is it something in that, do you think? I mean, if you ask the general young grown-up in Norway, how many of us, of them feel really involved and engaged in the question of democracy? And how will we make it matter?
Well, first, just to mention that the fact that history is, a battleground in Norway and elsewhere. And that is also one of the commonalities we see around the world, how history is used and misused to tell a new story, exactly what Emma said. Make whatever things great again. Nostalgia is being, and that is also linked to how we are able as a country, as institutions, as a society to have a critical view on our own history. So tomorrow we are marking 80 years since the end of World War II. Big celebration, big marking in Norway, all around. But how do we actually deal with our own past? If you look at the post-World War II history, from a Norwegian perspective, it was all about we, the Norwegians, got rid of the German Nazis. We were the good, they were the bad. We didn't do anything bad. That part of our identity building has a very dangerous set to it. If we aren't able to realize that, well, who were those Norwegians arresting the Jews, taking them, arresting them? How do we actually deal with our own difficult past? How difficult is it for Norwegian politicians to say sorry to the Sami, the indigenous population, for the policy for many, many years, for decades, on making them, forcing them to become Norwegian? That is also part of how we deal with our own past. And if we don't do that regularly, if we are not open to criticize our own society, our own history, we could end up in a situation where we are supreme, we are the best. Our history is, and if things go wrong, then you put up that nostalgia and that great history once again. So it's really linked to using the occasion tomorrow as well to look at ourselves, to think, how are we actually doing on these values? Do we have a past that needs to be renegotiated again and again and again? And I think that is a crucial part of also being a democratic citizen, that you are open for that kind of self-criticism. To the question of, how are we really fit to take this on? Well, I believe that we do not share the same difficulties. We don't share. We have a good school. We have a good educational system, but of course, it's not perfect. And that is the most important reminder, that even though there might be, a lot of people focusing on this as a huge problem, overall, we just need to have that self-criticism all the time. And without it, we have much bigger problems. And I just want to highlight one thing, and that is to disagree. That one of the fundamental points of liberal democracy, of democracy in itself, is to tolerate disagreement and to open up for disagreement. Having that black and white, easy solutions to complex situations, that is the answers to the anti-democrats. That's the extremist view of it. So also in school, really use and cherish that disagreement. I think is fundamental also in the education system.
How is the disagreement going in Romania at the moment, Remus? I know that when you publish on your channels, you get some sort of disagreement. Can you elaborate on that?
I want to follow a bit his idea, and then I will answer about disagreements. I think that yes, if we are in the frame of a democratic debate, we have to agree to disagree. We have to understand that our ideas might be changed during a dialogue. But when you talk with a person that says only threats to you, openly says, if I can, I will kill you. Or a person who says only conspiracy theories or amazingly stupid things, like, no, you are paid by Soros, you are a traitor of the country, you are something like this. Unfortunately, in these cases, maybe 99% of the times, the dialogue is impossible. And we have to understand that if somebody is threatening you that wants to kill you, he means it, or he or she means it. So the dialogue is possible only if our minds are in this frame of democratic dialogue. When we respect each other, and it is possible to have a dialogue between a conservative and a progressive. So sometimes maybe they will agree to some things, sometimes maybe they may not. But when you talk with extremists, we have to understand that sometimes the dialogue is that. And it's them or us. Sometimes it's them or us. Imagine Germany in 1932 at the elections, when the Nazis took 30-something%, and then a few months later, Hitler was became Führer. So sometimes, unfortunately, it's us or them. The only thing that can save us from such kind of situation is to frame everything in a democratic field where the dialogue is possible. Otherwise, there will be a fight and maybe a war. And I have a lot of experience talking with people on my YouTube channel, TikTok, lives, because I'm filming everywhere I go. I do lives. Yesterday, imagine, I did 2 lives. First one, 3 hours in the city, showing my audience how beautiful is Kristiansand, and other 3 hours late in the night from my room about politics and about what's going on in Romania. And I had a very nice experience, because at the second live, it was a guy who started to type some messages against me, very against me. But I tried to talk with him. And minute by minute, of course, he was very against the government, but he wanted to replace the government with these extremists. And minute by minute, I succeeded to change somehow his mind and to make him understand that extremism is not an option. And imagine that after talking with him for many minutes, let's say 15, 20 minutes, he completely changed his mind and he made a donation for my work of 100 euros. So sometimes this kind of situation can happen, but it's very rare.
I agree. I worked for 12 years. I worked with the aftermath of the right-wing terrorist attack in Norway. 69 people, young people, shot and killed over right-wing extremists. And I definitely agree that, I believe that compromise is one of the most beautiful words we have. Mm-hmm. But in meeting extremism, you cannot compromise.
When you want to kill you, you have to defend yourself.
Absolutely. But I think also it's really important to not define the others, a big group of the others, as extremists. To find the balance there is really important. As the example you just used, we need as much of the population, as many, each and every one of them, to be Democrats, to be on our side, to be able to talk to them, to convert them from anti-democratic mind of thinking to actually, believing that this is worthwhile doing in a peaceful way. We can have that dialogue. It's really important, it's really difficult, but it's also, I think, a dangerous path to take if we exclude too many people and say, we cannot talk to you because you are extremists. Many of them would be extremists, but I don't think all of them. And to have that very fine-tuned balance of how we actually deal with that population, in which in many countries are quite a big population, I think is also really important, so that we do not push a big group into the hands of the demagogues.
And isn't that exactly what the demagogues want, to make the division between us bigger and to make us put that labels on people also who don't deserve that kind of labels? But again, how to do it in practice, how to do it in everyday life?
I very often just start with this kind of conversation. With 3 people around the table, that could be your family, your friends, at school, your workplace. Often that sounds like, well, you're naive, or this is too easy, but it's not. It's really starting to have that conversation. If a country, a society do not have those conversations locally, then there is no chance of actually our politician having that same kind of conversation in the parliament or in municipalities or wherever it is. So to have these conversations, and I think, again, I want to just stress that it should be demanding to be tolerant. But in a democratic society, and again, I agree with you that if we are not in a democratic society in the first place, this is really a completely different thing. But in democratic societies, as Norway, most of Europe, we need to take that seriously, that it starts with each and every one of them, even though that sounds like a cliche.
And I want to add to this moment that it's important that the frame of the discussion. When the discussion is possible, I fully agree with you. Sometimes, because we are talking about hybrid war, it's not this concept of hybrid war has this meaning that there is a real threat to our society. Even if Putin do not send missiles to Norway or Romania or other countries, he tries to corrupt and control the mind of, if possible, a majority of the people who can vote for a government or a president who is in favor of Russia. And it's like conquering a country. And let me tell you that in Ukraine, I saw many times, that the Russians are pure evil. And this is one example that I'm talking quite often. Imagine that they hit a place with a missile, and of course, after a missile hits, There are a lot of saviors, a lot of rescuers coming there, doctors, firefighters, and other people trying to get out victims from the robbers and so on to save lives. And the Russians, imagine that they wait for 15 or 20 minutes. And they hit again the same place, killing this time, the second time, more people, especially rescuers, doctors. So this is pure evil. You cannot describe this. You cannot talk with somebody who did this. You cannot talk, hey, maybe you were quite wrong. What do you think? Do you think that you are? No. This is pure evil. And it's them or us in such kind of real war. And in hybrid war, imagine that I experienced this for many, many times. I was in Ukraine in some destroyed cities and I filmed the buildings that were destroyed. And I was live on TikTok or YouTube. And there were commentators there that said, no, you are not there. You are in the studio in Bucharest. Everything is fake. Why they did this? Why they said this? Because they didn't want my audience and or the people that watched that live to see the pure evil. They want to cover the actions of the pure evil. And again, how to deal with these people, with kind of commentators? What should you do? Because they said, take something from, take a rock from, okay, I took the rock, and they didn't believe me, or they said that, no, it's fake, everything is fake. But they are also a kind of accomplices of these crimes, because they deny them. It's like denying Gulag or Auschwitz or other horrendous crimes in history. And that's why I'm saying that the battle for democracy is a battle for truth, because we have to make some differences, clear differences between truth, facts, and lies, propaganda, conspiracy theories, and so on. And sometimes it's really impossible to have a real dialogue with people who have an agenda and deny everything, covering in this way the most evil things in history.
Do you understand this perspective?
Well, two comments. First, I really understand your story, because exactly the same happened on the island of Utah after 22nd of July.
Wow.
Contacted, yearly, monthly, of people who said it never happened. Those 69 people who were shot in the head, killed, it didn't happen. Can you prove it to me? They were actors. This was the will of the Labour Party, Social Democrats, to get their votes. This would never happen because of, and then you stretch it. There are all kinds of conspiracy theories, but again, it's a way of saying, it didn't happen to take that, and I think the same mechanisms is at stake. But what you also say that without facts, without truth, how can we deal with as a democratic society? And that is also a reminder that we need to have a focus on our media institutions, both on the safety of journalists, which is something we probably can talk about with your own experience as well, how to actually make journalists safe so they can actually do their work, but also the institutions behind them. In Europe, one of the trends we see is that energy companies buy up media. Why would energy company need media institutions? One of the ways, for instance, the Norwegian oil fund could counter that is to have a mechanism saying, if you actually look at media institutions in Europe, when they are purchased by these groups, there's a direct link between the direction they go after being purchased by energy companies, how they are reducing the standards of journalism, etc., etc. Here, other financial institutions can actually make a contribution to democracies with safeguarding those media institutions, because they also bought and misused. So there's a lot of things that we can do, not only citizens, but also our institutions, and we should do them. We should do it more.
A very good example, and let me give you a short example. Yesterday, one of the lieutenants of George Simeon, is candidated might win next week the presidential elections, told to the media that you are on the brink of extinction. So she's a member of the parliament. She's one of the closest allies of this candidate, and she threatens the media, you are on the brink of extinction. If we will come in power, of course, that's not the idea. So we will silence you.
And I know that when you are on your channels, as you said, you receive those comments, people saying that they want to kill you, and you take it seriously. It's not just someone being angry and saying it, meaning nothing with the words.
I was attacked on streets 2 times.
Right.
Not recently, but because I was also a member of the parliament and I was involved in politics. And because I had a very progressive agenda, many people with not conservative but anti-democratic views saw me as a threat to our Romanian, heritage or something like this.
We won't be able to hear your stories from the trenches on the front in Ukraine, but I will just mention that you sent me a message sometime this summer, and as always you were cheerful and polite and starting to ask how I was doing, and then you said, oh, I almost got killed in a drone attack yesterday. So you've definitely been in horrible situations, but what do you think about the future in Romania for journalists and writers like you? Because now you're saying that you feel more unsafe in Bucharest than in Romania than in the front line in Ukraine. What if worst comes to worst, what can happen? Will you be silenced?
In Romania there are already some blacklists with journalists and personalities that they threaten, that they are threatening. And I'm not afraid. So when I'm talking about this, I just describe how the things are. I'm not afraid. I'm willing to die for my work, because this is one of the main questions that you have to put yourself when you go on in war zones. Are you willing to die for a picture? Are you willing to die for a clip? Yes, I'm willing to die for a picture or for a clip. For trying to show to the people far away what's going on there. So I'm not afraid, but I'm sad, I'm very sad to see a lot of good people in Romania who became targets of these fanatics, of these extremists. And I'm not afraid to say that they are fanatics and extremists. Imagine that we have a wonderful person who is an actor, who is 90 years old, around 90 years old. He is a legend for our cinematography. And they told him, these extremists, they sent messages to him that they will break his head. They will kill him. They will break his head with a kind of a weapon. And I was very sad because, I choose to put myself in danger, but many people don't. Many people just express their ideas in favor of democracy, and then they receive these threats. They are not prepared to deal too well with this. I have some experience, I've been in 3 wars, it's fine. But there is a real danger. And I don't think that Simeon, if he will be elected, will give an order, kill the journalists or put them in jail. No, but a lot of people who are his fans will want some revenge. And it's enough to go on streets and to meet some people of this, because there are many. Imagine if he already got 4 million votes. So there are many people who are celebrating now. They are happy, we will be in power, we will destroy you, we will. So it's enough to walk on street and meet some people like this who are quite violent. And maybe they will feel entitled to give me a lesson, or to other people to give them a lesson. And this might mean anything. And even if you have these political messages from members of the parliament, extremist members of the parliament, you are on the brink of extinction. say this to the media is very dangerous. It's very dangerous because, I repeat, it's not necessary to make a law to do something like this against the journalist. It's enough to give the feeling of some of his followers that they are entitled to do anything with the traitors of Romania.
I think we're kind of at a low point in this conversation now. It seems like the situation for freedom of expression in your country is in real danger. But we have to take the last minutes to bring some hope, because, as you said, we cannot give up. We cannot allow ourselves to get apathetic. What to do, Jürgen, when you hear stories like this? What do you think we could, as an international society, do to counter these kinds of forces?
Well, to for a moment tell a story from my other role, the Nobel Institute in Oslo. In the room where the Nobel Committee makes all the decision and have all the conversations and discussions of who to give the Nobel Peace Prize. Two, on the walls around us is the pictures, the portraits of all the laureates going back to 1901. And that room with all the portraits hanging around us on the wall reminds me very clearly, for every meeting, for every time I'm there, that history is not just a linear way forward. It's struggles. Sometimes you succeed and then fail. It goes back and forth, up and down. And I think that is an important reminder that it's not set that it will go really bad, or as we thought in the 90s, it would go into heaven. So to have that nuance and to have that, it all matters what we actually do, how we can support movements, individuals, institutions. Now I believe that countries as Norway have a responsibility, not only on behalf of others, but on behalf of ourselves and democracy in Europe, to really step up. And we should use that opportunity. Organizations such as PEN, which is a global movement, should also use the opportunity to link up with other organizations, to do more, to step up the work we're doing. Because as I said earlier, the anti-democrats around the world are doing, unfortunately, a hard job of pushing their agenda. And we should do the same, but we have to do more. We should increase our budgets, we should increase our popular support, we should really involve as many citizens of our own countries by doing so. Not only in solidarity with others, but also on behalf of our own future. And to have that momentum in history, I think is also energy. It could give energy to our movement to counter these forces.
Last remark from you, Remus. You said yesterday that your agenda, the reason why you are willing to die for a picture or for a video clip
or a story, is that
you want to change the world, you said.
and
you must have some hope that that's actually possible.
otherwise you wouldn't do it, would you?
Of course, the final goal, let's say, of my work and of the work of the war correspondents, or the work of the people who are put themselves in danger to find the truth or to show the truth, to show the reality, to show the horrors of the reality, of the history and of our present days. The final goal, I think, is to make this world much more peaceful. Even maybe someday to make this world wise enough to stop all of the wars and to have to cooperate with every nations to have a cooperation between all of the nations for a common good. And of course there are some philosophers who are talking about this, there are a lot of documentaries, movies and so on. But the final goal is this one. Let's show the horrors of the world in order not to repeat them, in order to understand that if we have some differences or different approaches, let's try to talk and to negotiate, not to start a fight between us and to kill the nations, the states and so on for land or for resources and so on. This is the final goal. Of course, you might say, oh, but maybe this is an utopian dream that maybe we will go on Mars and we will do wars there also, or on the moon, or we will colonize the space and we will continue to do wars even in the space. We'll see, because it's also a matter of human nature. Some type of behaviors might make the future wars quite possible. But I think that only using reason based on facts and use our emotions and our empathy and our sensibility in order to understand the suffering of others, maybe I think we have some tools to make this world better, and it is possible. We have this European Union project, countries that fought between each other for centuries, they're now together cooperating in peaceful ways. So it is theoretically and practically it is possible. If we will be wise enough to extend this to the whole planet, it will be great. In these hours, we are on the brink of a war between India and Pakistan. It would be as I know, the first war between two nuclear powers. So we might have another big crisis with a lot of implications worldwide. Maybe we will. I hope that my work somehow and the work of other war correspondents will help a bit in order to reverse this trend of in these recent years when we see that we have a lot of wars and a lot of tragedies and a lot of killings and a lot of suffering for nothing.
So some effort, some attempt to conclude. We have to show the horrors, but we have to keep the energy of the hope for something better.
Of course.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much, both of you. Angela was watching online.